Occasionally, for ADA purposes, we have students who need to have a little extra time on tests. And recently we had a faculty member ask if there was a way that they could let a particular person who met this criterion into an exam 30 minutes before the rest of the class had access to it, thus giving that person 30 extra minutes to work on the test. And the answer is yes, you can do that in Blackboard. So here I am in my test course, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm in the tests area and I need to deploy a test, so I'm going to go to assessments and choose a test that I've already created. This is a test. I'm going to submit that. And the way I set this up on the test options is pretty much the same way I would do if I were setting them up for a regular test. There's maybe one difference that's very important. I'm going to go ahead and make the link available. You can always come back and make the link available after you've set up the adaptive release rules, which I'll show you in a moment. But I'm going to go ahead and do it now. I'm going to say no multiple attempts. I'll go ahead and set a timer for 50 minutes, typical length of a course. At this point, I am not going to set display after and display until dates and times. I'm going to do that in a different place. I can set the due date. We'll say that this is going to be due on Friday, February 1st at, we're going to say 9 a.m. No, I'm sorry. Yes, 9 a.m. 9 a.m. And then I'm only going to show the score, and I'll show them what answers they submitted, but I will not show them correct answers. And I'll also go ahead and randomize the questions. Click Submit. Now again, I've made the link available, so in a test course scenario, this is okay. You may want to wait and come back and make the test available after you set the adaptive release rules. And I want to set you the adaptive release rules on here now so that I give access to the one student 30 minutes prior to the rest of the students getting into it. Now, this is not going to be a regular adaptive release. You're going to need to click this little chevron next to the link and choose Adaptive Release Advanced. And the reason is because we need to go ahead and actually set up two rules that will apply here. Okay, so we're inside of the test settings, looking at the advanced adaptive release settings, and I'm going to create my first rule. The first rule is going to be early test taker, I'll call it, and so we've named the rule. Now I need to set the criteria for this rule. And the criteria for this rule are going to be twofold. There's going to be the date time criteria, that is, when do I want the link to appear and when do I want it to disappear. And then it's also going to be a membership criterion involved as well, because we need to tell who it is that's going to have access to it for this particular date and time criteria. So let's go ahead and set the date and time. This is very similar to what you would have over in the other part of the test options, but we set them here instead. Blackboard prefers that you set them on the adaptive release rather than at the test if you're going to use adaptive release tools, or sorry, adaptive release rules. So we're going to set this for the first, and we're going to say that I want this link to appear for the one person 30 minutes before the test starts. So the test starts at 8 a.m. I'm going to let him into it at 7:30 a.m. I want the link to disappear on the first, and I want it to disappear once they've gotten into the exam. So we're going to go up here, and actually I could really set this for the entire length of the exam if I'd like, but I'm going to go ahead and just say I want the link to disappear at 8 a.m. Let's click Submit. So I have the date criteria set for the early test taker. It appears at 7:30 a.m. and the link disappears at 8:30 a.m. Now they may be in the test and presumably will be taking the test when the closing time or the link disappears, and that's fine because once they're in, they're in. But now I need to tell who it is that has access to this rule, so I'm going to set a membership criterion. And I'm going to browse my course, and these are fake users that I've put in here. And we'll say we want, not myself, we'll say Mr. Berlin. is the only one that I'm going to give access to this exam 30 minutes ahead of time before everybody else. So I click submit. So now I have a single rule, but it really has two parts. It has a date criterion and it has a membership criterion. So the link will appear at 7:30 a.m. on February 1st, and it will only appear to Mr. Berlin. Okay, so that now is set, and I'll click OK. But now I need to allow the link to appear for everybody else in the class that I didn't want it to appear at 7:30, but now I do want it to appear for everyone else at 8 a.m. So I'm going to make another rule. And this rule I'm going to call the everybody else rule. Everyone else. Click submit. And now I need to add criteria to this rule. And actually there's only a single criterion that we need to add this time. We need to add just the date. So we're going to display this on the February 1st. We're going to display it at 8 a.m., which is when everyone else will start the test. And then I want the link to disappear on February 1st. And we're going to say we want it to disappear a little bit after they get in the exam. We'll say 8:30. That gives plenty of time for them to get into the exam and take care of any problems if any should arise. And that's really all I need to do after I click submit. That's really the only rule left I need to do, because since I don't set a membership criterion on this particular one, that means it applies to everyone, including the early test taker. So the early test taker, should they be accidentally kicked out of the exam or whatever, will be able to see the link at least up till 8:30 a.m. Okay, and so that, I'm going to click OK. Click OK again. And there is the test. If I turn off the edit mode, you can see that it looks like the folder is empty, and that's because the rules that I have set in the adaptive release advanced rules have not yet kicked in. They don't apply yet. So turn the edit mode back on, and the link is there. And if we were to come back on the 1st at 7:30 a.m., and if I were to log in as John Public or somebody that is not the early test taker, Mr. Berlin, then they would not be able to see, John Public would not be able to see that link. Only Mr. Berlin would be able to see that link. At 8 a.m., however, John Public, who is enrolled in the course, would begin to see the link and have access to the exam.